This week on the Fantasy Beatdown, we had to do a redraft with two new guys. So I'm gonna go through again all the teams and give my thoughts and tell you how I think everybody made out. So first overall, we've got the Mulligans, and he landed Ovi. This is the first time I've ever had the fantasy draft that Ovi's actually gone number one. He deserves it every year, and he finally gets it. So if I had him on Twitter or something, I'd hit him up and be like, "You finally went number one, Ovi. Prove them all wrong." But yeah, then he took Carey Price. I mean, solid goalie. I'm not convinced Montreal is gonna be in the top 5 in the East. They're maybe looking at 30, 35 wins tops, I think, for them this year. Playoff team and everything, but there's a huge turnover there, and there's a bunch of kids in Montreal, so it'll be interesting to see how well Price performs. Then he took Drew Doughty, which, I don't know, I think is a good pick. I like Drew, solid D-man. Some notable picks that he made, Jason Spezza in the 5th round, good player, taken way too soon if you ask me. Then he's got Jeff Skinner, and I don't know if he didn't see my last video or if he doesn't follow the news, because I called it. Skinner's already concussed. Like, who knows what's going to go on with him this year, so I really don't like that pick. He's also got Joe Thornton. I'm not going to talk much about that. 13th round, better than the 7th in our first draft, but 13th round, I just wouldn't take Joe Thornton. He might be happy with him as a 13th, though. We'll see. But Thornton, he always just gets assists and drives you nuts. Anyways, picks that I like. He's got Nino Niederreiter in the 16th round. Nino had a pretty good year last year after he basically got thrown to the wayside by the Islanders. He performed pretty well for Minnesota, so I think he might be due for a pretty good year, especially in the 16th round for a draft pick. He's also taken Martin St. Louis. I think Martin is going to have a big year this year. He's winding down towards the end of his career here. He's just got too much pride. I think he might have a statistically favorable season this year. So all in all, I think the Mulligans, he had a fairly good draft being first overall. So next we've got Ninja Hurdles returns, and I wore this Bure jersey specifically for him and for me. Bure, fantasy legend, if you ask me. There's more where this came from. You'll see later. Anyway, so he took Steven Stamkos with the 2nd overall pick. I mean, that's a no-brainer. He's looking at probably at least 40 goals guaranteed from Stamkos. Then he took Dustin Byfuglien in the 2nd round, who's, I'm not into really taking a defenseman this early in the draft, but the draft kind of played out that way. Defensemen were kind of going in that round. So to get Byfuglien as the right wing and defense dual role positions, pretty solid pick. Not to mention he was the leading fantasy point producer as far as defensemen go last year. So that's a pretty solid pick. Then he took Jonathan Toews from Chicago. Yeah, be pretty solid. 3rd round pick, that's a pretty good pick. Then he's got some good picks later in the draft. I like Evander Kane in the 6th round. I think Evander's going to have a pretty good year. He's going to get points, through hits and pims and whatever. Maybe he'll throw some hundies around on the ice. That would be pretty awesome too. You never know. And then he's also got Johnny Boychuk and Martin Hanzal in the 14th and 15th round consecutively. I find the Johnny Boychuk one really interesting. Johnny, he put up pretty good points last year in Boston as like a depth player, didn't get much ice, he was just basically out there to defend against other teams' best players. Now, I'm interested to see what his role is going to be for the Islanders. We all know he's got a howitzer of a shot, so who knows? He might even see some power play time down with the Islanders. So that's an interesting pick for me in the 14th round. Hansel, I like Hansel. He's a sleeper. I mean, you don't expect much from him, but he puts up points in all facets of the game. And, he's the best center, in my opinion. I think he's better than Vermette in Arizona. And he usually plays with Bodker, in my opinion, their most offensively skilled guy. So we'll see. I mean, that's an interesting pick. I don't really like the Scott Hartnell pick. I like Scott Hartnell. I'm not convinced of him being a 9th round pick this year. I think the move to Columbus might hurt him. I'm not sure if he's he's definitely not going to get to play with Giroux all the time like he did in Philly. And I'm not sure if he's going to get all the power play time that he got in Philly. But all in all, pretty fair team. Got Datsuk in the 13th round. He kind of just sat around. I think everybody was scared of him because he's kind of a Band-Aid. And his goaltending, he got Ben Bishop early in the 4th round, which is a solid goalie to have. But then he didn't get anybody else, it doesn't look like here, until the 18th round. He took Jaro Halak. So it looks like he's got a bit of a hole at goaltender, but pretty solid team as well, just like Mulligan's. So next we've got Carlsons of Anarchy, and with the 3rd overall pick, he took Corey Perry. Same boat almost as Stamkos. I mean, pure goal scorer. He's looking at, I'm going to say same thing as Stamkos, like guaranteed 40 goals, probably closer to 50 if everything goes according to plan down in Anaheim. And then in the 2nd round, he took Erik Karlsson so that he could change his name back to Carlsons of Anarchy, I suppose. I mean, again, I'm not a huge fan of defensemen in the 2nd round. I mean, I feel like there's lots of time to get a defenseman, but yeah, Carlson's a solid D-man, puts up a ton of points, so pretty good pick considering he took a D-man in the 2nd round. And then he took Semyon Varlamov again. He had him last time, and like I said, I mean, Varlamov was a stud. Now, he led the league by like 100 points last year, but Colorado, played way above their head last year. So, it'll be interesting to see if Varlamov and the Avalanche can keep the form they had last year and amass the same point totals as they did last year. Then he took another defenseman in the 4th round by taking Duncan Keith. Now, I like Keith and everything, but in my opinion, he's front-loading his team with defensemen, and I'm not really sure what the strategy behind that is. Then he took Patrice Bergeron, solid centerman, followed by Brian Little. Then he took another goalie. So he's got Schneider in the 7th round. So I'm looking at it, and beyond Perry, he didn't really take any of the top-end scoring guys early in the draft. After Corey Perry, the next best guy he's got for scoring, it might be Val Filppula. He's got a ton of guys for hits and stuff, but he might be scrapping for goals by the end of this league. So, but yeah, he took a lot of the leading hitters from last year, like he's got Matt Martin, Zach Rinaldo, Radko Gudas, Antoine Roussel. He grabbed Steve Downey in the last round. I'm interested to see how his strategy and how his team pays off for him by the time this league is over. It's really interesting setup for a team, so we'll see what happens. So next, with the 4th overall pick in the draft was me, and with the 1st overall pick, I took Jamie Benn again. I took him last time at 5. I feel confident enough in him to take him before Sidney Crosby in the 4 hole. Then I took John Tavares in the second round, which, I mean, I'm ecstatic about. I got him late in the second round. I can't believe he slipped that far. And, hopefully he lives up to expectation. And, he's got a chance for 90 points easy, this guy. He's all they really have out in the island as far as offense goes. So hopefully he can, kill it for him. Then I took Chris Kunitz in the third round. I mean, Kunitz plays with Crosby, so as long as even if Crosby's hurt, Kunitz has shown in the past that, he's capable to play. He'll grab me some goals. So I took all forwards, for the first 4 rounds. Then I took Phil Kessel. He was still available. Another guy with a chance at 40 plus goals. I mean, I'm not a huge Phil Kessel fan, but I couldn't pass up on the chance at 40 goals that late in the draft. So then I took my first defenseman in the 5th round, Brent Burns, another defenseman with a dual role, forward and defense. However, this year, from what I read, he's going to play more defense, so I'm not expecting the 22 goals like he scored last year, but I'm still sure he's going to be a solid fantasy guy as far as a defenseman goes. Then I took back-to-back goalies, Crawford and Bernier. Then I've got a lot of guys on my team late in the draft. I took some young guys. I've got a shot and a prayer. Like I took Val Nichushkin, Jonathan Huberdeau, and Tyler Toffoli. Now, Tyler Toffoli I took in the 19th round, and I mean, I'm not sure what to really expect from him. He was huge for the Kings in the playoffs last year. He led them in scoring. I think he led the league in scoring, actually, for preseason, so we'll see what happens. I got some bad picks, too, like everybody else. Like, in the 10th and the 11th, I mean, the Sedin twins were still sitting there, so I scooped them up. I don't have that high expectations for them, but I mean, you never know. They could return to form like they had 2-3 years ago and both be 60, 70 point guys. And I mean, I wouldn't complain about that. I also grabbed Radim Verbata, just to complete the trio. I mean, I might as well. Basically, I feel like if Vancouver scores a goal in a game, I've got a 80% chance of getting the points on it. So we'll see what happens. And that's about it. I mean, I grabbed Jacob Trouba is another guy, actually, in the 20th round. He played quite a bit last year in Winnipeg, and I feel like he might get a really big role in Winnipeg this year. So I'm kind of high on him, but I've got my expectations tempered. We'll see what happens through the first month or two of the season. So next is one of the guys who joined the league late, and I'd like to say thank you again to him. And he's a Penguins fan, and my favorite player of all time is Mario Lemieux, so this jersey is in honor of him. And I mean, he must be ecstatic because he picked at 5, and he got Sidney Crosby with the 5th overall pick. I mean, I'm surprised I even let Crosby slide past me, but I'm just too high on Ben. So then he took Shea Weber, who, like I said in the last video, I feel like is the best D-man to have in fantasy. In the second round he took him. Shea just plays too much. He plays all power play. He plays penalty kill. He's basically always on the ice. I mean, you tune into a Nashville game and Shea Weber is on the ice all the time. Then he took a homer pick for a goal. He took Marc-Andre Fleury, which, I mean, Fleury's not the best goalie in the league, but he's in the same boat as me where I got Crawford. I mean, both these guys kind of mediocre at best, but play for really good teams. Gonna get a ton of points just on wins alone. He's also got Pekka Rinne, so I'm not too sure where Nashville's gonna fall in. I mean, the Western Conference is stacked. I mean, there's so many good teams in the West. It's gonna be hard, I think, for Nashville to compete. They might be looking at maybe 20, 25 wins. They're probably a 500 team, I think. We'll see. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen there. With Chicago and Dallas, I mean, everybody in the West looks good except basically all the Canadian teams and and Nashville. So we'll see what happens. So late in the draft, I'm not really seeing much picks I like. I like the Christian Ehrhoff pick for defenseman in the 11th round. I think the fresh start, like Christian was great in Vancouver when he got power play time and stuff. You know, he kind of disappeared in Buffalo, but doesn't everybody? And I think the fresh start in Pittsburgh is going to be big for Ehrhoff. Then he took Jaden Schwartz. Now, I'm not too sure where exactly Jaden's going to fit in St. Louis, but he has potential to be a pretty solid fantasy guy. And I mean, all in all, he's got a pretty fair team here.
This quicksand, it pulls me under, it pulls me underneath it, and I'm learning how to live with my heart.
So unicorns and rainbows. He's got Evgeny Malkin with his first overall pick. Then he took Tuukka Rask with his second overall pick, which is a pretty good pick. I like Rask. I mean, Boston has the chance again to be, one of the best, if not the best, teams in the NHL, probably vying for the President's Trophy again. Then he's got Logan Couture, and I mean, again, I will state this. I'm high on Couture. I think he's going to get a ton of playing time, and he's got a chance to be a major point producer for the San Jose Sharks and for Unicorns and Rainbows. Some picks that I like late here in the draft, he took Ryan Callahan in the 9th round. I like the Jake Allen pick in the 16th round. I mean, I'm not really sure who the starting goaltender is slated to be in St. Louis. I believe it's Elliott, but Elliott's been there for a while, and he's been good for them, but they're starving to find a goaltender to basically take over the reins and run with it, and Jake Allen might be that guy. I mean, they thought it was going to be Ryan Miller last year, but he didn't do much of anything for them. So Jake Allen is highly touted, and I think he might get a chance this year to grab that ball, and he might just run with it. So I really like that pick. He also took Dougie Hamilton in the last round. I like this pick as well. Dougie he can play all ends of the rink, and he's a big kid. I think this might be the year where we see the true Dougie Hamilton. I mean, we haven't really seen him play like he can play, like he had played in junior. He was kind of feeling his way into the league. I think this year he might find himself a little bit more comfortable on the ice, especially, with his size. Last year, maybe looking around at the other men, he might have been a bit intimidated. But I think this year, I think it's going to be a whole new season for Dougie, and I expect big things from Dougie Hamilton. I think he's going to get a lot of power play time because, he's pretty good offensively. So, I also like the Slava Voinov pick late in the 18th round. It's a pretty good pick. Now he's got James Neal and Ryan Kessler. He took Ryan Kessler in the 5th round, James Neal in the 6th round. Now I'm concerned. I like both the players. I'm concerned at the round in which he took them. Kessler, I'm not sure how big his role is going to be. I'm not going to sure if they're going to find room for him on the number 1 power play unit in Anaheim. I think they will, but it'll be interesting to see. They usually have Getzlaf on the point, so there might be a spot for Kessler on the number 1 power play, but I'm not convinced that he's worth a 5th round draft pick. James Neal. Now, James Neal was a fantasy stud in Pittsburgh, however, playing with either Crosby or Malkin. Usually he played with Malkin. Now, I'm not sure what they're going to do for line combinations in Nashville. I'm pretty sure he's going to get a lot of ice time and a lot of opportunities to score. I'm just not convinced that without Crosby and Malkin and Kunitz and all these other guys drawing attention away from himself, I'm not sure if he can be the same point producer that he was in Pittsburgh. I still think he'll be good, but I don't think he'll be worth a 6th round draft pick come the end of the season.
She's got the eyes of a panther. She got lips like Satan. She's got the eyes of a panther. And soon you'll be on my town. She's got the eyes of a panther.
next we had the Chislers. And again, just like last time, this guy, he loaded up front heavy with beef. I mean, and he went even more drastic this time. He took David Backus again, Milan Lucic again, just like the last time, 1-2 overall. But this time with his third pick, he took Zdeno Chara. Now, he's looking, I mean, the way I see it, that's looking to be about 600 hits, just about, I bet, right there, if not very close. It'll be so. But then he took Joe Pavelski and Brandon Dubinsky. And again, Brandon Dubinsky's another guy. That's basically, I'm going to say, a minimum of 700 hits he drafted in the first 5 rounds. And that's not counting Pavelski. I mean, Pavelski might throw in 50. But it'll be interesting to see. Then he took my favorite, Sergei, the goalie Bob. I mean, I love that pick. I love Sergei. He plays all the time. I mean, Columbus doesn't really have another option. And he gets a lot of rubber, so hopefully he can put up some wins. I mean, Columbus did just re-sign Johansson. I'll talk about that a little later here when I get to that. Then he took a couple of offensive guys in Ryan and Oshie. Pretty solid picks. He took my advice from my last video where I got Troy Brouwer in the last round, and now he went 10 rounds sooner in the 10th round to the Chislers, so that's a pretty solid pick. He took Jaromir Jagr in the 13th round, and I mean, that just makes me smile. Makes me think his team name should be Moves Like Jagger, and it should have a permanent theme song. Also, he's got Brian Elliott. He ended up with Brian Elliott as one of his goalies, and I'm worried about Brian Elliott. I mean, Elliott could be the guy and probably should be the guy, but I think he's going to have a really short leash. Jake Allen is just too highly touted to leave waiting in the wings too long. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Elliott. And then I think he wasted his last pick by taking Dan Boyle. But you never know. I mean, he could have a resurgence in the Rangers. But generally speaking, these guys, they sign in New York and they die in New York.
To know too much about me, oh no, 'cause I know you take advantage of the words that I say. You're looking for a way to depress me.
So, Doan syndrome. He's got Ryan Getzlaf in the first round with the 8th overall pick. Pretty good pick at number 8. I mean, again though, I might be trying to make a move to get Corey Perry. I mean, that's a dynamic duo. I mean, I like Getzlaf though. He's going to play a ton. Anaheim's going to be good. Should be a good first overall pick. Then he took Patrick Kane again, another good point producer. Shouldn't have a problem with getting points out of Pat Kane. Sorry if there's background noise. I'm watching the ball game. Anyways, then he took Jonathan Quick, solid goalie. Could possibly be the best goalie in fantasy. You never know. The Kings are pretty good. So we'll see what happens. I like that pick. Then he took another goalie again in Kari Lehtinen. Now, Kari's a pretty solid goalie, and Dallas is a pretty solid team. I'm not sure Kari is worth a 4th round pick. However, you never know. I mean, Dallas really loaded up this offseason, so you never know. I mean, they could make a real push and be one of the best teams in the West. So then he took Matt Duchene. I like Matt Duchene. I think he's going to have a breakout season. He had a breakout season last year. I think he's going to have an even better season this year. So that's a pretty solid pick. Then he's got Ekman Larson for his first D-man selected in the 6th round. I mean, that's a pretty good bargain. Ollie gets a lot of minutes and plays on the power play in Arizona. Then I like the Jeff Carter pick with 7. I think that's a pretty solid pick at number 7. Carter's going to be probably the highest goal scoring producer for the Kings this year. Some other picks, he took some guys late in the draft like Henrik Zetterberg in the last round. That's a wild card. I mean, Zetterberg basically said that he's not sure, like he's never going to be the same person because of his back or whatever, but I mean, to get him in the 20th round, you never know. Like, this guy has the capability of being in the top 5 in league scoring, and if he gets that out of Zetterberg, that's a pretty impressive pick. Took Jordan Stahl. He stashed him on the IR till he gets back, so that's not a bad move unless one of his top players gets hurt. Then he's going to have to make a decision because we only got one IR spot in our league. Alex Goligoski and Ryan McDonough round out his defense. Oh, and he's got Nick Kronwall. And I'm not really ecstatic. I think this might be the worst group of D-men on any of the teams, but you never know. I mean, McDonough, they're all good players, don't get me wrong, but fantasy value, they're not top quality players. Kronwall and McDonough are the best defensemen on their team, but never really produce power play wise. Now, McDonough might this year. I'm not really sure how the Rangers exactly plan on using him. I mean, they showed a little bit of him on the power play and stuff, and his ability to put up points last year. So if that carries on, he might have been worth a pick. Then he's got two guys, I mean, like Brad Marchand being the first. I hate this guy. I mean, I don't know how anybody can stand to root for him, but you never know. In Boston, he might put up some points too. And Tommy Wingels, we'll see how San Jose uses him. Last year, Wingels was valuable in our league. Hits were at 2 points per hit, and he was fairly valuable in our league. Now, we dropped the hits by 0.5 this year, so, I mean, that's going to take away considerable amount of points from Wingels, so we'll see how that shakes out by the end of the year. Yeah, with the 9th overall pick in the first round, he took Tyler Seguin. And I mean, I'm high on Seguin. I like Seguin. I'm not convinced he's a draft pick worthy of going ahead of guys like Tavares, or Giroux is another good one that he went ahead of. Who else maybe? I mean, Lucic is another one. I might have even taken Shea Weber or Bufflin. The way our draft went, D-men were going, I might have even taken one of them. But I mean, you never know with Seguin. I mean, he's got the potential to be a high-scoring player, and he was last year. He might get to the 50-goal plateau. You never know. He's got the capability to do that. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays out. Then he's taken Gabriel Landeskog, and I like this pick. Landeskog's a solid player. He's fantasy proven to produce in all facets of our fantasy league, so that's a solid second-round pick. Then he took Max Pacioretty. Now, Pacioretty had a monster year last year, and I'm interested to see if Pacioretty will be able to duplicate what he did last year with the Habs. His 4th round pick, he took Blake Wheeler, and Blake Wheeler's another one of them guys. He scored 28 goals, I believe, last year, and the majority of his points came from goals and hits. And like I said, we lowered the hits, so it's interesting to see what Wheeler does. I still like that pick. Next, in the 5th round, he took Ryan Johansson. Now, I mean, I really like Ryan Johansson, and like he just signed a contract today. So, but generally speaking, when a guy holds out like that, he comes back and he kind of has a bum year. So I don't know. I can't say I would have taken Johansson in the 5th round. I might have waited, maybe till the 8th or 9th round to grab Johansson. I still like Johansson though. He's going to be the number 1 center. He's the best offensive guy they have. He's big. He does hit. He's another one of those guys that'll produce in all facets of our fantasy league. Then he took Ryan O'Reilly, who, I mean, I don't like this pick. He took him in the 7th round, and I mean, he almost won the Lady Byng last year, so that tells me right there that, like, this guy doesn't hit, he's never mixing it up. Basically, you're dependent on him getting goals and assists, and he didn't get that many points last year. I mean, he was a solid player in real life, but in fantasy, he's not worth a 7th round pick, I don't think. Then again, he took Frederik Andersen for his first goalie in the 10th round. And I really like Frederick. I like any goalie basically that plays for Anaheim. And I think Frederick is going to be the starter. However, John Gibson is waiting in the wings, and he's just like the Jake Allen situation. He's highly touted. Basically, if he gets a chance to take the ball and run with it, he just might. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking having Anderson, but I still like that pick. Then he's got James Wisniewski and Eric Johnson are the first two D-men he selected. Oh, and he's got Brent Seabrook. And I think that's it. Yeah, I chirped him last time about having 6 D-men, and this time he goes ahead and takes 3, and in my opinion, only has 1 good one. So, we'll see. I don't like his D-core. But then he's got Craig Anderson and Darcy Kemper. Now, this is the same situation, I feel like, as all his goalies are in the same situation, basically, where they could be the number 1 guy and probably should be the number 1 guy, but you never know. There's other goalies on each team. Like, he's got Anderson and Kemper. Now, Kemper, I think Kemper should be the number 1 goalie, but they might give it to Backstrom. And same thing, like, it's going to be the hot hand is going to get to go. And then same thing in Ottawa. Leonard had a chance last year to take over the number 1 goalie and didn't. So I believe Anderson is going to have the opportunity to take it. He did re-sign with them. He's basically there till he retires now. But, if he slips up and Leonard can come in and play to the potential that he has, you never know. Anderson could lose that spot as well. Then he took a homer pick in the 19th round, Thomas Plekanec. I think that's a mistake. He should probably hit up the waiver wire, drop Plekanec, pick up Galchenyuk, might be a good move. Matt Zuccarello, I'm not so sure Matt Zuccarello can have a do-over of what he did last year. I think he just played way over his head. And maybe it's the Vigneault thing. I'm not really sure. But Zuccarello was good last year, and I would temper my expectations on him this year.
But it was not your fault but mine, and it was your heart on the line. I really fucked it up this time. And wasted on fixing all the problems that you made in your
head. So last we have Bomb Squad, another one of the guys who joined late and unfortunately got the last pick, but that's the way the cookie crumbled. Anyways, good on him for joining up late and participating. It's fantastic. So with the first pick with 10th overall, he took Claude Giroux, which that's a pretty solid 10th pick. Giroux is a pretty good offensively skilled player. Probably going to get another one of those guys who's a chance to be 80 plus, possibly 90 points on the season. So that's pretty good. Then he took Moneyman PK Subban, and that's what started the whole spiel of everybody taking a defenseman in the 2nd round. I'm not sure I like that pick. I do like PK. He's going to be a great option fantasy-wise, but I really don't like taking a defenseman this early in the draft. But, everybody has their own mind and can make their own decisions. But yeah, he took PK. Then with his 3rd pick, and I'll say it again, he took Nathan MacKinnon. I'm not sure. I'm really nervous about a sophomore jinx with MacKinnon. He was fantastic last year. Colorado as a team was fantastic last year. I'm not sure if Colorado or MacKinnon can reproduce the seasons they had last year. Then he's got Henrik Lundqvist for his goalie, taken in the 4th round. Pretty solid pick. Lundqvist is always, right in and around the top for fantasy goalies. Then he took Marian Hossa and Wayne Simmons, a couple of different style players. Hossa has a chance, to score a bunch of goals, probably playing alongside Taves again. And then Simmons, I really like Simmons in the 6th round. I feel like Simmons is going to take Hartnell's spot and play with Giroux full time. That is super fantasy value, especially because he has Giroux. I think that'll be a good tandem moving forward. Then I think he took 2 lame picks with Ryan Suter and Thomas Vanek. These guys are like, they change like the wind. One day they'll Vanek will get a hat trick and Suter will get 3 assists, and then you might not see nothing from them for a week. You never know. But Minnesota will be a good team again. Those two they'll have to be two of the best players for Minnesota if Minnesota wants to get into the playoffs. David Krejci, pretty solid centerman. He's got Rick Nash, and I'll state it again. I'm worried about the concussion thing with Nash. We'll see. I mean, Nash is a big boy. You think he'd be able to get over it, but he's got his bell rung, I think, a few too many times. So I feel like he's going to play timid and not play to his full potential. Then he's got his backup goalie is Ryan Miller in Vancouver. And, I mean, I like Ryan Miller, but I just don't see Vancouver amassing that many wins this year, and I feel like they might get lit up in the Pacific Division playing against all those powerhouses out there. He's got Danny Heatley in the 17th round. Now that's a wild card. From what I hear, Heatley's going to play with Perry and Getzlaf, so you never know, that might be some fantasy value. Other than that, he's got a pretty solid team here.